Well, it's time to live up on my name. Finally. First, a little history as to how I grew up with the Yoshi character. As most of you may know, my family used to own a GameCube in the early 2000s alongside the PS1 and eventually the PS2. Thanks to the GameCube, it was how I got to play some Mario games for the first time, and of course, one of those games I grew up loving was Super Mario Sunshine. Yoshi was featured in it, and believe it or not, didn't leave that strong of an impact yet. For me, all Yoshi seemed to be was some random dinosaur that somehow splurted juice from his mouth and nothing more. It wasn't how I felt about characters like Crash Bandicoot. Nah, that would eventually change thanks to two games, one of them being Mario Kart Double Dash, where Yoshi's real personality and charm shined bright onto me. I know it was just a kart racer, but keep in mind, I was a stupid kid. And two, playing Yoshi's Island DS. Yep, before I even knew the original existed, I was spending hours upon hours each day after school playing Yoshi's Next Adventure on the DS. It's insane it took me so long to realize there were far more Yoshi games than my mind could comprehend, let alone that this was a sequel to an 11-year-old game at the time. But once I did, my love for the character grew even bigger. When my family got the Wii in 2008, Yoshi's Story was on the Wii Shop channel, and I also remember playing that for hours, and it wasn't until in 2012 when I finally got to experience the original for the first time on the Game Boy Advance. Yep, I'm one of the minority who played the GBA version first before the SNES version. Call me uncultured, it's easy to do so. And in an official sense, Yoshi's Island wasn't one of those games Nintendo would easily re-release, part and thanks to it using the Super FX chip, something to help boost the graphical and power capabilities of later SNES games. The GBA version got re-released in 2015 for the Wii U's Virtual Console, but finally the original game was re-released in 2017 on the SNES Classic, giving me my first and by far definitive experience of the very original Yoshi's Island that started it all. And because of all of this, it's the reason why I've grown to love the character so much to this day. Yoshi is pretty much the character I think of when someone asks me who my favorite video game character is. But spoiler alert, the nickname Yoshi Player comes more from the character and not so much the games themselves. But let me tell you, Yoshi's Island is a game I play quite a lot to this day and age. I even have an original PAL cartridge of it, that I don't play anymore because why the fuck would I want to play a 50Hz cartridge when I can play the 60Hz version on my Switch? Yeah, that was my first attempt at a segue recently, but whatever, let's just get this all started. It's kind of funny to do research and discover the game was originally called Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. I'm assuming because the success of Super Mario World and the popularity of Yoshi made sense for Nintendo to slap that lying subtitle on the game. Nowadays, we all just call it Yoshi's Island, which was pretty much what it was always meant to be. For this review, I'm looking at the version included in the SNES Classic, mainly because I love holding an SNES controller whenever possible. It has a couple graphical glitches, like when you touch a fuzzy and there's some seizure effects that were patched out to avoid concerns, but it's pretty much the same Yoshi's Island most of us grew up and loved for years. The story is that a stork is carrying a pair of babies to their parents' house somewhere in the Mushroom Kingdom until a Magic Koopa named Kamek, first seen in Super Mario World, snatches up one of the babies while the other falls towards the sea. I love how the GBA text reads, "Oh no!" while the SNES text is like, "Oh no." The baby conveniently lands on top of a wandering Yoshi and just so happens to be Mario, with his brother Luigi being the kidnapped twin, forcing Kamek to send his lackeys to retrieve the missing brother. I wasn't sure at first what the exact reason was why Kamek tried to kidnap the Mario brothers in the first place, until I looked up that apparently he did it so he could prevent them from becoming Bowser's enemy in the future, and now I'm more curious as to why he doesn't just kill Luigi right then and there. It's not like the lack of Mario prevents Luigi from taking any harm, so why the fuck is Kamek not taking the first step into killing Luigi? Do it before he becomes annoying in Smash Bros. Ultimate. The Yoshi takes Mario back to its herd and agreed to help him rescue Luigi and get back to their home. A simple story with a couple shortcomings, but you can't expect any worse or heck better from a game like this. Yet it's still somehow more compelling than rescuing a dumbass damsel for the billionth time. Babies are in fact more worth rescuing than a dumbass. Bite me, Cleve. Before I get to gameplay, I need to take a moment to admire how good this game looks. Thanks to it using the Super FX chip, Yoshi's Island has a clear hand-drawn art style with thick outlines and round character designs that give the game a ton of personality. Dare I say this game looks better than early 5th gen sprite-based games? Yet it still very much has that SNES charm that's easy to identify. There's even little things I like, such as how you play as a different coloured Yoshi for each of the 8 levels per world, green usually being the starting one, yellow and blue being used for fortress levels, or green being the final level instead of blue. Fucking main character superiority. Okay, so let's properly move on to the gameplay. As I mentioned before, you're controlling Yoshis throughout the game. You can still run run, jump, and stomp on enemies a la Super Mario World, but as the aforementioned first game in this Yoshi series is where you'll be introduced to Yoshi's new moveset to set him apart from Mario. For instance, if you hold the jump button for a while, Yoshi initiates a Flutter Jump, a move that keeps him in the air for a while, giving him
extra height and distance.
It can be a lifesaver in many instances, and if you bounce off an enemy, Yoshi will flutter even higher than normal. It's great for when you need to reach tricky platforms just barely out of your reach. Yoshi's Island was actually the introduction to the ground pound move that Mario would later use in 3D games, in which you hold down in midair and Yoshi will skyrocket towards the ground and smash anything in his way. You'll only find yourself using it to smash through dust, breaking open boxes, or for one of the boss fights, because using it for killing enemies isn't really necessary and kind of breaks the pace a bit. Just like in Mario World, Yoshi can use his tongue either horizontally or vertically to eat anything in his way. You can either spit him out like projectiles, or if you press down, that enemy turns into an egg that literally comes out of Yoshi's pointy buttocks. You know, the longest theory I've always thought about is, what gender is Yoshi supposed to be? I know most sources say he's a boy, but do all genders of Yoshi naturally do this? Are there babies in those eggs? Is it just the enemies? Oh, who cares? Nintendo is used to this. Kirby literally devours anything he eats, the sick bastard. This is a tradition for any Yoshi game. Eating enemies, turning them into eggs, and then throwing said eggs at anything it points at. You can carry up to 6 eggs at a time, but running out of them is hardly an issue, unless it's a situation that requires basically all eggs you have in stock. Enemies in this game come in all shapes and sizes, and they are everywhere. Whether it's the standard Shy Guys or Goombas, indestructible Tap-Taps, Piranha Plants, the cunts as I call them, or fuzzies that'll literally put Yoshi into an acid trip. And believe me, you'll pray to God you never take damage from these guys. Why? Yep, if you take damage whatsoever, Baby Mario falls off Yoshi's back, somehow encapsulates into a bubble, and proceeds to cry his fucking lungs out until Yoshi gets him back. Every time you take damage, a countdown will commence, and if it reaches 0, Kamek's toadies will kidnap him, costing Yoshi a life, and one of them straight up picks their nose. Gross, dude. Of course, there are still things that can insta-kill Yoshi without fail, but it's still less frustrating than taking actual damage. Someone please shut that bitch up! More often than not, enemies won't give you too much trouble because aside from your eggs and tongues, there's watermelons in several stages that give Yoshi advantages in shooting projectiles, whether that be seeds, fire, or ice. If there was ever a Yoshi game with the highest body count, Yoshi's Island may just be one of them. Watermelons are your only choice of basic power-ups, because the only other things you get are upgrades stored in the pause menu. You either get these from mini-games where you face off against one of the aforementioned cunts, or by scoring a sunflower at the end of the level that puts you in a bonus stage. I hardly use one of these unless I needed to rack up my countdown number for the end of the level. In set locations you can find a power star that'll put you in control of Baby Mario as he runs super fast, is invulnerable to anything, and even run up walls. Finally, an actual use for this little twat. Each level has 5 flower heads and 20 red coins to obtain, but they're purely there to rack up your score at the end. If you can collect all 5 flower heads, 20 red coins, and keep the countdown timer at 30, you get 100 points total, and if each level has a perfect score in that world, you unlock an extra level and a bonus stage. Aside from that, it's purely there for bragging rights. You don't get anything else for 100%ing the game, so unless you want to see those extra levels, you can easily skip this part. Not to mention the process of getting there can be quite tedious at times, especially towards the end of the game. Any excuse to not hear this fucker lose his shit is fine with me. Fuck! There are some sections where Yoshi can transform into vehicles like helicopters, submarines, or cars, but they're achieved in very short doses that sort of come and go. Given Yoshi's ridiculous arsenal and no real incentive to 100% it, there's not that much challenge to the game. But then there's some levels that outright suck, especially the auto-scrolling levels. I'll just say this right now, auto-scrollers are one of my least favorite level tropes in any platformer, next to water levels and snow levels. Literally all you do is wait around for the correct moment to keep moving forward. Wait, move on, rinse and repeat. It murders the pace of the game and isn't very fun. Hell, sometimes normal levels can have sections like this too. But if there is one level trope I always love in this game, it's the fortress levels. The boss fights themselves range from easy to fantastic, but I at least love how they're designed. And that final boss is just iconic. I'll also never forget the first time I was able to skip the piranha plant boss fight by throwing an egg at it before Kamek can even transform it. Little details like that really add to the game's charm, you know? Speaking of charm, the music is phenomenal. I use it quite frequently in my videos nowadays because I love pretty much every single track in this game. Some are atmospheric, some are upbeat, and some are soothing and easy on the ears. Something later games really should remember by now. But you know what? In spite of my issues with certain levels, 100% completion, or having to endure this brat, I still love Yoshi's Island. Yes, it can be fatiguing at times, but that's why I prefer playing it in small doses, because when I do, I'm always enjoying myself. Do I think it's better than Super Mario World? That's hard to say, seeing as these two games are fairly different in terms of mechanics and controls, but either or, I'm always having a blast. Yoshi's Island is bright, colourful, has wonderful soundtracks, some kick-ass controls, and some great bosses. It's one of those games I can't get sick of, no matter how tiring it can get. And you know what? For a first entry in a new sub-series, that says a lot.
We are karate door number 1.